Will it work? Do you believe this hazard recognition process, this coaching process, this peer-to-peer monitoring, do you believe it will work? Now, by the way, this is an education question, right? Is there a difference between training and education? Do you want your kids to get sex education or sex training? When it comes to driving, is driver's ed enough? You know, so you know the difference. So I suggest, yeah, we train people, but they have to, that's the how, but they have to get the why. They have to understand the rationale behind it. But the toughest question when it comes to safety is question number 3. Is it worth it? All this extra stuff. See, that's the tough one, I know, in your business. Man, it was a big deal just for me to get inside the plant. I felt like I accomplished something. I'm inside, you know. I went through all these checks and balances, you know. And it was just as difficult to leave. I mean, and all that extra stuff, is it worth it? I mean, you don't see negative consequences, and you miss checking out your radiation level, and you sneak out, and everything's okay, nobody saw you, and you don't see anything negative. How do you convince people that all this extra stuff we do for safety is worth it? By the way, I'll tell you what does not work. Statistics. The TRI chart, you know. These are our recordables, we're getting better, look, we can do, you know. Come on. The individual person. Now, the CEO is in charge of a bunch of folks, maybe some. But the individual worker out there in the field, you know what works for them? And it works for you too. It's the way they sell you products in Madison Avenue with an infomercial. Case studies. Individuals just like you, using the product they want you to buy, and they're having a happy time with that product. Same with safety. We have to get people to talk about the emotional side, another E word, the emotional side. You know, I almost got hurt, or somebody got hurt. You know, Bryce was telling us when we met him today that he had a serious thing happen in his family, or in his secretary's family, without going into detail. But I mean, we saw the emotion on your face, man. We saw that affected you deeply. And now we have to get people to talk about it. If it's in the workplace, somebody got hurt, let's talk about it. To the people. I have the privilege, now and then, to follow Charlie Moorcraft. Anybody heard about Charlie Moorcraft? Oh yeah, you've heard of him, right? You hear him once, you want to hear him again. And you hear Charlie Moorcraft was seriously injured, burned, and he tells his story in the most dramatic way. He has you sitting at the edge of your seats. I was at a conference once, and he's telling his story, and he talks about the burn unit, about how they had to peel the skin off his, and the guy fainted in the back. I woke up to Charlie. I said, Charlie, are you okay? He said, it happens all the time. It's never the ladies, the men, the macho male, who can relate most to my situation. Charlie claims that he's the why. And then I get to follow up and teach the how. But I get Charlie, or Charlie gets you, realizing this is why we're here. This is why I do what I do. Because he makes it personal. And he makes it emotional. And I think it's time we recognize the need for that. Because it's not easy to continue doing all these extra things just out of routine. We have to talk to ourselves. By the way, it's good to talk to yourself. It's good, it's healthy. You can even talk back to yourself. Why did I do this? I did this because. Never mind why, just go fetch. How much of our life is about that? Just do it. Never mind why. That's training. This is my favorite story. The dog's got a problem. How are we going to teach the dog? We call this observational learning. We're going to show the dog. And look how well it worked. Look at the dog.
Come to my house.
From chance accidents to preventable injuries. This is where I feel like Dr. Deming. You keep using the word accident. The 3-year-old comes to during his constantly funny. Ooh, he had an accident in his pants. What did you mean? He couldn't help it. He couldn't help it. I have workers say, well, it's just an accident. When it's your time, it's your time. Our ex-president, Bill Clinton, fell down the stairs in the United States. In newspapers published worldwide, this is what he said. It was just an accident. And accidents happen to people. It's a traffic crash, folks. Why don't you use words that bring out the emotions, you know? And why do you keep using words that imply we're not in control? All accidents are preventable. Are you kidding me? That's an oxymoron. That's like plastic silverware, jumbo shrimp, legal brief, country music. Seriously. And I know it's a habit. I know it's a habit. I heard it 15 times tonight. I wrote it down, check them off. Yep, he said it again. Accident. And particularly when you talk about traffic. And the department, U.S. Department of Transportation has been trying for years, and so is NHTSA trying to get people to use the word crash, collision, to accident. Because it's, by the way, it's how people perceive it. We're talking about paradigms again. Oh, it's just an accident. I want to go to preventable injuries. We had an injury. We had a hurt from chance accident, from root cause. I know it's a habit. You don't really mean this, bless you. You don't really mean that there's one root cause to an injury. I mean, you don't really mean that. You can't. For example, as a researcher, I know you're not going to find cause and effect relationships through an interview. The only way you really can study cause and effect is by manipulating an independent variable and seeing its effect on a dependent variable, and then you have to systematically remove other possible variables that could have caused that effect. So why don't we just talk real? Why don't we just talk about contributing factors? Maybe if we use contributing factors, more people will be willing to speak up. Going to find the root cause. I worked for a company several years ago, a construction company, and the guy was walking on a scaffolding 3 stories high. He stepped on a steel plate, and the steel plate moved. It was covering a hole. Steel plate moved, and he fell through the hole. He caught himself, so it was not a fatality. And that company did an accident. Oh, here's another word. Investigation. What does that sound like? Sounds like you're going to find fault. You're going to find a criminal to investigate. Who was running, didn't want to be interviewed? The welder, who 2 years earlier had welded the plate over the hole. They wanted to find the root cause. So what do you think? That's a pretty simple situation. What's the root cause? Do I have to ask why 5 times? Is there a root cause? Is it gravity? Let me tell you, folks, they asked 150 people. They interviewed them. We want to know more about that situation. And 100 said they stepped on the same plate and they noticed that it slipped. What do you think they did? They walked on. Because they have other priorities, man. Other things. Safety was not a value. Everything was so right. It's got to be a value. But they walked on. And you know what they did? These are the questions they asked. Who did that? Someone better fix that. Manager better do. That's the wrong question. You know what the question behind the question is? How can I help? That's the paradigm. Not who did that. What's the root cause? How can I help? What are some of the factors that I observed that could have contributed to that incident? If any one of those individuals had reported that plate being loose, they would have prevented that injury. They were as much a fault as anybody else. They were a contributing factor. And we have to get a culture. Maybe you already have it. Great. You have the kind of culture. I really think, visiting the Darlington plant today, I really think you're close, man. People are hearing stories about people will talk to each other in peer-to-peer discussions. I mean, it's really cool. You have the kind of culture where people are willing to say, I I almost got it the other day, close call. Let's talk about the contributing factors, the environmental. It's one thing to say I almost got it, write it up as a near hit, not a near miss, that's a hit. Near hit, a close call. It's one thing to write that up, but how about also analyzing, not investigating, analyzing the contributing factors, the environmental factors, the behavioral factors, and the person factors, meaning the attitudinal factors. If you look at all those factors, we got a culture. Now, some of you are saying, oh, that's just language. You bet it's language. But how we talk will influence how people feel. No doubt about it. And it might not be how you see it. You understand an accident is my cancer is an accident. There's a difference between my cancer and most of those injuries out there. If I knew what to do to stop the growth of this tumor, I would do it. In fact, I'm doing everything I know. Bob told me there's a new breakthrough with prostate cancer, and I'm hoping they get the pill out before it's too late for me. Not to get your sympathy, maybe your attention to the fact that that's an accident. That's an accident. That's not the same as most of those injuries out there. Some of them are. There could be an injury that you just didn't know. Good. That's a separate category. I'm asking who how can I help? From failure avoiding to success seeking. This is so big. This is so big.